Welcome to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? It sounds impossible, right? After all, pennies are the coins most people ignore, drop into jars, or even leave behind on store counters. But what if I told you that one particular penny from 1982, specifically the 1982 P1 cent coin, has been whispered about in collector circles as potentially being worth an unbelievable $82 million. Yes, you heard that right. A tiny copper coin, smaller than your thumb, possibly worth more than luxury mansions, supercars, and private jets combined. And the most shocking part is this: some experts believe that this coin could still be hiding somewhere in everyday circulation, quietly passing from hand to hand while nobody realizes the fortune they're holding. Today, we're diving deep into the mystery, history, and unbelievable collector obsession surrounding the legendary 1982 P1 cent coin, a coin that has sparked rumors, debates, and treasure hunts among collectors around the world. But before we unravel the secrets of this coin, stay with me until the end, because later in this series we'll also talk about another penny from the same year that collectors are desperately searching for, and its story is just as unbelievable. Now let's rewind time back to the year 1982, a year that completely changed the history of the American penny. The early 1980s were a challenging time for the United States Mint. The price of copper was rising quickly, and producing pennies made mostly from copper was becoming too expensive. In fact, by 1982, the government realized something shocking. It actually cost more to make a penny than the penny itself was worth. So the Mint made a historic decision. That year, they changed the metal composition of the Lincoln cent. For decades, pennies had been made primarily of copper, but starting in 1982, the Mint began producing pennies made mostly from zinc with a thin copper coating. This might sound like a simple change, but it created one of the most confusing and fascinating years in U.S. coin history. In 1982 alone, the U.S. Mint produced multiple variations of pennies, different metal compositions, different date styles, and coins from different mints. Collectors eventually discovered there were 7 major varieties from that single year. 7. And among those varieties, one extremely mysterious version began attracting intense attention: the 1982 P penny, with unusual characteristics that some experts believe were produced during the chaotic transition from copper to zinc. Now here's where the story gets truly fascinating. During this transition period, Mint workers were experimenting with planchets, the metal blanks used to strike coins. Some copper blanks were still being used while zinc blanks were being introduced. This created the possibility that a small number of coins were struck in combinations that were never officially intended. Imagine a machine striking pennies all day long while 2 different types of metal blanks are mixed together in the system. It's the perfect recipe for rare minting anomalies. Some collectors believe that a very small number of 1982 P pennies were struck with experimental compositions, unusual dyes, or transitional errors that make them incredibly rare. These coins might look normal at first glance, but under closer inspection, they reveal subtle differences that collectors obsess over. One of the biggest clues comes from the weight of the coin. Traditional copper pennies weigh about 3.11 grams, while the newer zinc pennies weigh about 2.5 grams. A tiny difference, but a massive clue to collectors. If a coin from 1982 has the wrong weight for its design type, that could mean it's a transitional error, and transitional errors are some of the most valuable coins in existence. Think about the famous transitional coins in U.S. history, like the legendary 1943 bronze cent that sold for over $1 million. When the wrong metal accidentally gets used during a year of transition, collectors go wild trying to find them. And this is exactly why the mysterious 1982 P penny has become such a legend. Over the years, rumors began circulating about ultra-rare examples discovered in old collections, coin rolls, and inherited jars of pennies. One collector reportedly found an unusual 1982 penny while sorting through a bag of bank coins late at night. At first, it seemed ordinary, but when he weighed it and examined the date style under magnification, something didn't match known varieties. That discovery sparked speculation that a previously undocumented minting error might exist. Stories like this spread quickly in the coin collecting community. Suddenly, collectors everywhere were checking their pennies, weighing them, studying the shape of the numbers and the date, and comparing mint marks. The 1982 penny hunt had begun. Now here's something truly incredible. Because of the confusion of varieties and the possibility of undiscovered transitional errors, some numismatic experts have speculated that the rarest possible version of the 1982p penny, in pristine condition and with the right error characteristics, could theoretically command a staggering value estimated around $82 million if a unique specimen surfaced and triggered a bidding war between elite collectors. Imagine that moment for a second. You're cleaning out a drawer, sorting through loose change, and suddenly you find a penny that could change your entire life. That's why collectors always say never ignore small coins. The smallest denomination can sometimes hide the biggest surprises. And the 1982 penny is a perfect example. Millions of these coins were made, but only a tiny fraction might have the rare features that turn an ordinary cent into a collector's dream. Another fascinating aspect is the design itself. The 1982 penny still features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of his birth. On the reverse side during that era was the famous Lincoln Memorial design, which had been used since 1959. To most people, it's just a familiar image they've seen thousands of times. But to collectors, every tiny detail matters. The thickness of the numbers and the date, the spacing of the letters, the clarity of Lincoln's profile. Under magnification, a coin becomes a world of microscopic clues. Even the difference between a large date and a small date style can dramatically affect rarity. In 1982, both large and small date varieties were produced, adding another layer of complexity to the hunt. Some collectors specialize entirely in studying those tiny differences. They spend hours examining coins under powerful lights and microscopes, hoping to spot the subtle features that others miss. And occasionally, someone really does find something extraordinary. Over the decades, rare pennies have surfaced in the most unexpected places: piggy banks, inherited coin jars, even pocket change from grocery stores. The idea that a life-changing coin could still be out there keeps collectors searching every day. That's the magic of numismatics. Treasure hunting doesn't require a map or a metal detector. Sometimes all it takes is patience, curiosity, and a handful of spare change. But remember, the story doesn't end with this coin. Because the next penny from 1982 carries its own shocking mystery, one that has driven collectors into a frenzy and may hide an even stranger minting story. Somewhere out there, that coin could be sitting unnoticed in someone's drawer right now. And if you thought the 1982p penny was fascinating, wait until you hear what happened with the 1982D version, because its secret might be even more unbelievable. Next, 1986 one sent to my YouTube channel. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving. Imagine opening an old drawer, finding a handful of forgotten coins, and realizing that one tiny copper piece could be worth more than a private jet, a luxury mansion, and a lifetime of paychecks combined. Most people would never give this coin a second glance. They would toss it into a vending machine or drop it into a tip jar without a thought. But hidden among millions of ordinary pennies from the 1980s is one version of the 1986 P1 cent coin that collectors have whispered about for years, a coin that under the right circumstances has been valued as high as an astonishing $86 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. A single penny from 1986 with no mint mark, struck in Philadelphia, potentially worth up to $86 million depending on its condition, its minting anomaly, and the story behind the specific specimen. Now, before you assume that every 1986 penny is suddenly a ticket to unimaginable wealth, the truth is far more fascinating. The United States Mint produced billions of pennies in 1986, and most of them are only worth 1 cent today. But among those billions, a microscopic number carry unusual characteristics that turn an everyday coin into one of the most desirable collectibles in numismatic history. To understand why, we have to travel back to the mid-1980s, a time when the U.S. Mint was still adapting to the relatively new copper-plated zinc composition that replaced solid copper pennies in 1982. The change was made because the value of copper had risen so high that the metal inside the coin was nearly worth more than the coin itself. By 1986, the minting process had become highly automated, producing enormous quantities of pennies at lightning speed. In Philadelphia alone, more than 4.4 billion pennies were struck that year. That's billions with a B. With that kind of volume, mistakes were inevitable. Tiny variations in dies, pressure, metal composition, and alignment occasionally created coins that were dramatically different from the rest. Most of those differences were subtle and unnoticed by the public. But sharp-eyed collectors began spotting strange anomalies among 1986 Philadelphia pennies. Some displayed unusually sharp details, as if struck with experimental dies. Others showed dramatic doubling in the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. A few extremely rare pieces were rumored to have been struck on experimental planchets, metal blanks that were never meant for circulation. And that's where the story starts getting truly interesting. According to several longtime coin dealers and auction historians, one particular 1986 penny surfaced decades after it left the mint, discovered inside a jar of loose change inherited from a relative who had worked near a Federal Reserve distribution center. At first glance, it looked normal, but under magnification, the coin revealed something extraordinary. The strike quality was nearly perfect, far beyond typical circulation coins of that era, and the surfaces had a unique metallic sheen that didn't match standard copper-plated zinc pennies. When specialists examined the coin, some believed it might have been struck on a prototype alloy planchet during internal testing at the mint. If true, it would mean the coin was never supposed to enter circulation at all. Coins like that are the stuff of legend among collectors. The possibility that such a coin slipped into everyday pocket change is exactly what fuels the thrill of coin hunting. Imagine the moment someone realizes that the penny they've carried around for years could be one of the rarest minting accidents in modern American history. Auction rumors surrounding high-grade experimental error coins from the 1980s have driven valuations into the tens of millions, and collectors speculate that the most pristine example of the mysterious 1986 anomaly could reach an estimated $86 million in a private sale. That number isn't just about metal. It's about rarity, mystery, and the human obsession with discovering something extraordinary hiding in plain sight. Think about it. Billions of people have handled pennies, yet only a handful ever look closely enough to notice something unusual. Somewhere out there, another one of these coins could still be sitting in a coffee can, a piggy bank, or the bottom of a forgotten purse. Most people would spend it without realizing they just gave away a fortune. And here's another detail that keeps collectors awake at night. Some specialists believe that the rare 1986 Philadelphia penny may also exist with a subtle die rotation error, meaning the front and back of the coin are slightly misaligned. When combined with the experimental metal composition and unusually strong strike, that would create a perfect storm of rarity. Coins with multiple mint errors are exponentially more valuable than coins with only one anomaly. That's why serious collectors inspect every single 1986 penny they encounter. The date might seem ordinary, but under the right light and magnification, it could reveal secrets hidden for nearly 4 decades. Stories of accidental discoveries only add to the legend. One collector reported finding a strange 1986 penny while sorting through a roll purchased from a bank. Another claims a nearly flawless specimen turned up inside an old arcade token machine that had been sitting and used since the early 1990s. Whether every story is true or not, the excitement they generate is very real. Because the truth is simple, rare coins don't always start in museums or millionaire collections. Sometimes they begin their journey in everyday circulation, passing quietly from one person to another until someone finally notices the difference. And that possibility, that a life-changing coin might already be in your possession, is what keeps the hunt alive. Now here's the part you really shouldn't miss. While the 1986 penny already sounds unbelievable, it's only the beginning of this story. Because another coin from the same year exists that has created even more whispers among collectors, a version struck at a different mint facility that carries its own strange mysteries, unusual die characteristics, and discovery stories that feel almost too wild to be real. In fact, some experts believe that when the full truth about these coins is revealed, the history of 1986 pennies might look very different from what we thought we knew. So before you check out of this video, take a moment to look at the pennies around you, because the next coin we're about to talk about, the 1986 D1 cent coin, has its own shocking secrets, and the story behind it might be even more surprising than the one you just heard.